Y'all, so this is interesting because there's an intro to this vlog, but I'm doing another intro because this video has taken me quite a long time to film, and I purposely chose The Bluest Eye for my next banned book diary because of the fact that I had been wanting to reread it, and The Bluest Eye is one of the most frequently banned and challenged books. It has been that way previous to the uptick in the banning and challenging that we saw starting in 2020, or the results of 2020. So I thought that it would be a good next pick, and it's a little different from the pick that I had before and one that I had read before. So I just want to say that this was not an easy reading experience. It took me quite a while to actually get through this book because of the content, and I remember now why after reading this book it was so difficult for me to continue on with anything related to Toni Morrison, because this book was just, it was difficult. I think that one of the big questions that I always ask when they do these videos is should this book be banned or challenged? Absolutely not. Regardless of my enjoyment, my reading experience, or whatever the case may be, I don't think that a book should ever be banned or challenged. I do think that it is up to the parents to decide whether the content is necessarily appropriate for their child, but I don't think that this is a book that everyone can handle. I am almost 32 years old, and this was a very rough reading experience for me, and that doesn't make it any less of a good book. But the content is difficult, and I would never disregard a parent's belief that the content is difficult, because it is difficult content. But I think that what is not appropriate for one child in the eyes of a parent can be okay for another child in the eyes of that child's parent. And so I think that this is one of those books that definitely, case by case, I wouldn't necessarily say that every high school student is going to be capable of handling the content in this book, and it is fairly graphic. So I will say that I'm going to be talking about some pretty intense things in reading this book, especially when you'll see me again in the same outfit at the end, coming to my final wrap up and conclusions and thoughts and feelings. So there's a lot that happens here, so please be mindful before consuming this video in terms of what you even feel like you're personally able to handle. I know for me, oh gosh, this was a tough one, y'all. This was a tough one, but I am glad that I did reread it, and I hope that you enjoy this video, and let me know all of your comments, all of your feelings if you have read this book in the comment box down below while we're already here. If you like what you see, you like what I do, make sure that you click the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications. You can follow me on social media, and all the links down below in the description box. And if you're looking for ways to support the channel, those links will be down in the description box as well. And I can't say enjoy, because it's kind of hard to say enjoyment in the same sentence as this, but ready to take you all along with me as I read The Bluest Eye. Hi, hello, welcome to another banned book diary. As you can see from the title of this video, I am doing another banned book diary. If you missed the first one, or if you don't know what a banned book diary is, I wanted to spend some time this year, every couple of months or every other month, taking a banned book and talking a little bit about it, and then also discussing some things that are currently happening in our environment in terms of book banning and book challenging. And so the first one that I ended up doing was Fat Angie, which I was not a huge fan of. I did say when I decided to do this, that I was not expecting to like every banned book or banned book or challenge book that I ended up picking up, but the point is to have open discussion, to really read these books, to see what content people are questioning, and to advocate for books remaining on shelves. So of course I ended up picking Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye for this one because of the fact that it is one of the most banned and challenged books of all time, according to the American Library Association. I've already been reading this, and as you can see, I've been annotating it. I'm currently on page 69. If you didn't know anything about The Bluest Eye, it is set in Toni Morrison's childhood hometown of Lorain, Ohio, and it's told through the perspective of one girl. And it is her and her sister living in this household when another little girl by the name of Pecola comes to stay with them. And there's a lot of content warnings in this already to begin with. This is not my first time reading The Bluest Eye. This is a reread for me, but it's been years since I've read The Bluest Eye. I mean years, almost 10 since I've read The Bluest Eye. And it is one of my favorite books of all time. But it is dark, it is unsettling, it is beautifully written, but tackles some very complex themes about loss of childhood, identity, colorism, and sexuality, and contents for assault and rape and violence. It's very, very dark, and I think that we are definitely getting a glimpse into how the world perceives Black women, young Black girls, and the things that are pushed on to us because of that. I think there is very much so a heavy discussion about colorism and its impact on Black girls, and how darker skin, young women, young girls, women in general, femmes, trans women, even though it's not explicitly addressed in this at all times, I think that it is applicable, that it's more difficult. It's difficult being a Black woman in America, but it's even more difficult being a dark-skinned Black woman in America. And we do see a lot of that in here. I have been annotating a lot of this. I don't want to give too much of what happens in here away because of content warnings, but we have a little girl here who is Pecola, struggling to understand what love is. And as a child who went through the same thing, this book hits a little differently as now, you know, me being in my 30s. And understanding a lot of the trauma that I went through as a kid, and seeing her go through it and not understand what it means to be loved, and wearing her Blackness as if it is ugliness, and wanting to be in anybody else's skin, wanting to look like someone else in order to understand and feel what love is. I'm going to read you a quote from page 57 that really just is gut-wrenching. She's saying here, it's an internal monologue. She says, "What did love feel like?" she wondered. "How do grown-ups act when they love each other, eat fish together?" In her eyes came the picture of Charlie and Mrs. Breedlove in bed, he making sounds as though he were in pain, as though something had him by the throat and wouldn't let go. Terrible as his noises were, they were not nearly as bad as the no noise at all from her mother. It was as though she was not even there. Maybe that was love. Choking sounds and silence. And there's already been multiple times that I've almost cried, and I get emotional now, and I hate getting emotional because it's a freaking intro clip and I'm getting emotional. That is gut-wrenching, that a child has grown up in an environment, a little Black girl has grown up in an environment where she's experiencing what she perceives to be love as her father having sex with her mother, and clearly as an adult processing this, you know that her mother is not, it's not an intimate moment for her mother. She is simply there, and that is not love, and that is horrifying to have to be in that experience. And then not only that, for a child to witness that experience and perceive that as love. And so I think we're seeing this theme of not knowing, not understanding, not comprehending what love is, and going out and searching for love, and getting thoughts and feelings about love tied up into what we look like, and understanding that people won't perceive her the same way that they may perceive a light-skinned girl with green eyes, and everyone loves her because she looks a certain way, and wanting so badly to look like that person in order to experience love. It's complex, I think, in a lot of ways. It's beautiful writing. It's extremely difficult. I am taking my time with this, but I am hoping to get this video up for y'all on Thursday. So I'm almost about 50% of the way through. I've been doing a blended read of it because Toni Morrison does read it, and so just hearing her read her book in her own words has just been a great experience. So I am going to continue on, and this is going to be, of course, there's no spoilers in this, but I will give a little bit of context of what's going on and look at some reasons as to why this has been banned. Hey y'all, I just wanted to do a quick check-in for my read, and I read a little bit of The Bluest Eye last night. I got up to about page 90-ish, somewhere along there, and I'm taking my time with it, but I'm hoping to get a bigger chunk of it read today because I have patron sprints tonight, and I'm hoping that during patron sprints, like, that's gonna kind of primarily be my focus, is reading The Bluest Eye. I am super excited to continue on with the story, and I say excited lightly. I mean, I am just enthralled by Morrison's writing. I mean, I completely and totally understand why people enjoy her so much as a writer. The story, though, is just getting darker and darker. There's so much commentary, I think, on the treatment of Black bodies in terms of Black women and Black girls, and I love what Morrison is doing with that. The lack of knowledge that I think women, and particularly Black women, are given about their bodies is so evident in this book. It's kind of a paralleling between, like, showcasing the innocence of our main characters, which is Claudia, Frida, and Piccola. It's illustrating the innocence that they have, but how quickly their innocence is stolen. And I got to this passage that is right before we get to the part of the book that's springtime, and it's talking about these women who are considered to be perfect, and the way that they are perfect is by fitting into the standard gender norms, cooking and cleaning and rearing children, and that is the expectation, and deviating from that expectation gets you a name that is honestly just not fair. So there's a lot going on in here. I think that when I look at it in terms of book banning and book challenging, this book is never going to be found in a middle school or an elementary school. A lot of times you see The Bluest Eye put on to syllabi for high school readers. And in terms of the content, this content is real. It is realistic. And once again, I say that most educators at this point are giving kids an option, okay? Like, The Bluest Eye could be difficult for some people to kind of grasp because of its themes. It is dark when it comes to its themes. But most educators are giving people options nowadays, okay, on what they can read in terms of assigned reading. And it's interesting because people are like, well, we this book needs to be banned or challenged, when it is a perfect example of how the world views and treats Black women, in particular dark-skinned Black women. And so I find it just very ironic that, of course, anything that is showcasing the reality of the Black experience and how racism and well, systemic racism and white supremacy has essentially destroyed how Black women view themselves. And it was a line that I'm gonna kind of paraphrase here, that I thought was absolutely beautiful and really does capture exactly what I'm talking about here when I talk about racism and white supremacy. I loved that she included a line in, I believe the other girl's name is Marguerite. Is it Marguerite or Marjorie? Something along those lines. One of those two names or something along that line. And she's fairer skin, has fair eyes, clearly biracial, and or somewhere along the lines you have someone in the family has had biracial children, or there's white in this family somewhere along the lines, right? And she sets up this framework where Frida, Piccola, and Claudia are interacting with her, and Frida and Claudia don't like her, and a lot of that has to deal with the fact of people revere lighter skinned black women. They're automatically told that they're beautiful. They are automatically given more respect. It's colorism at its finest. And with their interactions, you get to see, like, there's this anger that she is able to, you know, move through systems a little bit easier than them because of her complexion. And she is automatically considered more attractive because of her complexion. And there's this jealousy and this envy. But there was a line that she put talking about the two girls where she said they realized, you know, it's not her that they hate. They hate the thing that made her the way that she is. And that thing is racism, systemic racism, white supremacy, and the legacy of how we get a lot of people in our communities that are fair skin is dark. And I'm not saying that biracial children don't exist, because there's two people who have some sort of or not some sort, people have, you know, affection or love for each other. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is the legacy of colorism and the existence of biracial children has not always had a positive history, especially when we look at it in terms of slavery, okay? And so when you introduce elements like that, it is racism and systemic racism and white supremacy that has created this system of categorization within the black community in terms of our skin complexions. And no, it doesn't only exist in the black community, but for the sake of this video, I am talking about it in terms of the black community because this is what this book is focusing in on. So I've made it to that part. There are definitely some, it's already been dark, but I feel like we're leaning more into that darkness and that comparison of the innocence that these girls should have, and how you see how innocent and naive they are. They think that they know certain things. They think they know what it means for a woman to menstruate and where babies come from, and their explanations of it illustrate their pure innocence and the lack of communication that's gone on between older and younger people, because they don't genuinely know. This is stuff that they have heard, stuff that they've made up, stuff that they're making assumptions about, and it's so detrimental and harmful. And it's a great way to illustrate how innocent and naive they really are, and how it's about to get stripped from them. And so I think that Morrison just has so many different layers to this book. And you know, I could understand not thinking that your child is ready to read this content, but once again, I'm always going to say that does not give you the right to strip someone else's child of reading it. And so, yeah, that's, you know, that's just how I feel. But I digress. I am on my way to work, and so I will check in whenever I read another section. Yo, so I just wanted to hop in really quick and kind of give a quick update. Let's see here. So I am currently in the spring section of this book, and this book is hard. I haven't read this book in almost 10 years, and it's hard. This is hard. I don't even know how to necessarily explain how I'm feeling right now reading it because of the difficulty of the book, but we are just getting some really traumatizing moments associated with Pecola, and I think that Morrison is definitely capturing a variety of different themes here. In the section right before we get to spring, we're introduced to a young boy that has an interaction with Pecola that is just awful, but also addresses a couple of themes that I'm interested in. So almost this nature versus nurture. We're meeting this little boy who does not receive any affection from his mother. And as a result of him not receiving any affection from his mother, he ends up growing up very cold, very calculated. He's a bully. He is particularly mean to little girls. And so I think that that's a direct reflection of the relationship that he has with his mother, because his mother has this strange affinity for a cat because of the relationship that she has with her husband. And it's almost like a domino effect. So because she has this weird relationship with her husband, where essentially I think for most of their interactions she's feeling pretty much violated, she builds this affinity or affection for this cat. And so when she gets pregnant, she has a boy, and because she has this affection for the cat and not for him, he then has a very troubled relationship with women. And then also his mother is teaching him what she considers to be the difference between colored people and the N-word, because I will get flagged for saying that with the hard R. And I think that is a little bit of colorism at play, because at the very end of that chapter specifically, we get a insight to her complexion in comparison to Pecola's. And so that whole entire section was just so much packed into one. But I'm doing sprints right now, and I'm hoping, honestly, tonight I just want to go ahead and finish the book so I can get this vlog uploaded, because I've been holding this book hostage for a while. And honestly, I've been holding the book hostage for a while because when I read this the first time, I had a difficult time with it in terms of the content. It's a very, very difficult book to read. And so I was trying to pace myself, but I think in pacing myself, I feel like I have been avoiding it. And so I'm just going to sit down. I have about 100 pages left, and we are going to go ahead and push through. I'm finally doing another check-in for this vlog that has gone on for months because I keep putting this book off. But I am now 125 pages into The Bluest Eye, and I am at the part where we are learning more about Pauline. And Pauline is Pecola's mother, and so we're getting her backstory. And one, it's just incredibly heartbreaking, but I just wanted to read this line where she says that she's in the hospital giving birth to her second child, and the doctor says, or this is what she writes in her own words: "When he got to me, he said, 'Now these here women you don't have any trouble with. They deliver right away and with no pain, just like horses.'" And I wish I could say in 2023 that we still don't have these perceptions of pain when it comes to Black people, and labor delivery when it comes to Black women. But unfortunately, it still hasn't changed. I've talked a lot about my experience with labor and delivery, and how I was told that I was given a lower dosage of the epidural than what the anesthesiologist typically gave out. and I gave birth to my daughter in 2019. And so I think seeing this quote for myself brought up a world of emotion. But I'm currently doing sprints with patrons, and so I'm gonna continue to just slowly make my way through this and go ahead and finish it, because honestly, this vlog has been like months in the making and it's unnecessary, but this book is just a lot and I took an extended break. But we're gonna continue and just keep going, keep it chugging along. Okay, y'all. I don't even know if I have the words to describe how I feel. I have been on the brink of tears, trying to process my feelings about this book. You all know, I've said it time before, that this is not my first time reading this book, but it's been almost 10 years, and so I would have been in my early 20s when I read this. And now being almost 32 and reading it, there's a lot of things that I've experienced, a lot of things that I've seen, a lot of things that I've had to reckon with that are like encapsulated in this book. And I don't even think I have the space to really discuss the heart-wrenching, the gut-wrenching aspects of this book that just have torn me from limb to limb. Toni Morrison's writing is impeccable. It is beautiful. It is unlike anything that I have ever read before. But this was tough. This was draining. This was really, really hard to read. I really do think that the scenes in which we are graphically getting into the head of someone who is a rapist, someone who's committed incest, and it's not just insinuated, it is there, and it made me sick to my stomach. But all of this goes back to how so many Black girls are just never protected. They're never cared for the way that they should be. And I think that one of the most interesting things that I kind of dealt with in consuming this book was realizing how bad Pecola was treated throughout this whole book. She wasn't considered to be conventionally beautiful, and there was such a disregard for her life. And everybody took everything that they had dealt with and didn't deal with it, didn't heal from it, and so she paid the ultimate price for everyone else's grievances. And she's only 12. I am so torn up about that, and I hate crying on camera because I hate that. I hate doing that. But this book has torn me to shreds, because even at the end, and I'm trying to keep this as spoil free as possible, but even at the end, when everybody had realized like what happened to Pecola, they blamed her. And I know that that's a thing that still happens, but they blamed her and asked, why didn't she fight him off? Why didn't she try to get away? And imagine being that young and having someone that is supposed to protect you and love you violate you, strip you of all of your humanity in the most disgusting and vile way. There is no rule book or guidebook on how someone is supposed to react to that. And I love that our two main narrators, I always forget the girls' names, the town is responsible, you know? They're all responsible for what happened to her. And it's amazing how everybody had these speculations, and Toni Morrison wrote this in a way that we just saw like trauma beget trauma. We saw pain beget pain. And both her mother And her father just had such an absence of love, such an absence of identity, that they brought all of that into their child, who carried their burden and paid for it when it was all said and done. Their need, or at least her mother's need, to have this proximity to whiteness, to consider her relationship with this white family that she was a servant for more important than her own children. I think it hurt me so bad as a mother of a little black girl. I cannot reckon with the fact that she found solace in power and beauty and strength in these white people telling her that she was a great servant. She's the most excellent servant. Like, she got confidence out of that. And it makes sense that as a result, you know, her daughter then is like, I want to be beautiful and I want blue eyes, because blue eyes is what's going to make me beautiful. And people always like to say like stuff like that is just so far-fetched, but so many black girls grow up, especially dark-skinned black girls, we're just pummeled on by the world until they're not beautiful, they're not attractive. And I just can't imagine not building my child up to feel like she's beautiful, that she's worth it, that she's confident, that she's strong. But it's just watching the mother and then watching the father, his lack of feeling accepted. You know, his mother's dealing with mental illness. His father just really just does not care at all. Like, his father just does not care at all. And so, you know, he's ultimately searching for that comfort, and has not been given love and has really no love to give. And so, you know, he's searching for that and can't find that, and ends up with Pecola's mother and gets sick of it so easily. He's just kind of like, I'm just tired of it. This is not for me. Like, I am a free man. He's had no one to care for him. He's used to taking care of himself. He's used to not being attached. There is no guidelines, no structure, no nothing. It's just like, I make my own path. I decide who and what I want to be. And so having to force myself into this routine and being just with one person is just not for me. And so there's this resentment, and that resentment that he has for his wife, he takes out on his child. I don't think my heart has ever broken for a character the way my heart broke for Pecola, because she just never had a chance. She just never had a chance. Her mother didn't believe her. It happened more than one time, and she just felt like she didn't believe me the first time. So why would she believe me the second time? Pecola's so traumatized, she doesn't even realize what's happened. She's trying to disassociate from it, and she literally has a psychotic break because it's just too much to even fathom that this is what has happened. I genuinely think that one of the most beautiful things that Toni Morrison did with this book is that she breaks it down to give us a better understanding of why each character made the decisions that they did, regardless of how heinous those decisions were. So it wasn't a justification for any specific behavior, but I feel like it was definitely an analysis of what led to these people making these heinous decisions, and that it wasn't just about feeling sorry or heartbroken on behalf of Pecola, but also understanding what could cause people to do such egregious things to a child, and what would cause a child to believe that this proximity to whiteness, blue eyes, would be a preferable physical trait to what she was as a little black girl. That's not my child, by the way, if you hear someone yelling. That's the other little kid that lives next door to us. I don't know why, but she's always outside yelling for her mom. I don't even try to figure that out. But yeah, so I think that there is much should be said about the style in which this is written, and I did appreciate that. It was in some ways, I think, a little sick and twisted, that I was really in the heads and thoughts of a couple of people who were pedophiles, rapists, just incestuous. It was difficult, but I think that, I don't want to say but, I think that there is a reason why Toni Morrison did that, not just for shock value. I think that some people may take this book and they may look at it and say like, oh, well, she simply did this for shock value, just to, you know, push the reader to the edge. And it's like, no, there's a lot of different situations at play here, a lot of different systems, external forces that then are internalized by some of these characters that lead to some very, very, very sick and twisted decisions. And so at the end of the day, everyone in that entire town has to take accountability. And it's always interesting, you know, when I went back and I looked at it, I said, oh, okay, you know, at the end when the characters are asking like, well, how did that happen? We already knew that, you know, he was such and such and such. But it's interesting because you as a reader have this this almost godlike perspective of everyone. Like, it's almost like you are watching as people do the things that they do. And so while the characters themselves, the people in this town, are not actively aware of the trauma that some people have endured to get them to this point, we as readers do. And so it's not just a strict narration where we are dehumanizing every single character. It is this intricate building of a tragic downfall that a little girl has to take on, that she's forced to handle. I don't even think I have because I literally just, you know, I finished this a few hours ago. I don't even have the spoons really. I don't have the spoons really to give you the most succinct thoughts that I have about this, but a couple of quotes in here that I did like towards the end, with our two main characters who stated, all of our waste which we dumped to her and which she absorbed. We were so beautiful when we stood astride her ugliness. And fantasy it was, for we were not strong and only aggressive. We were not free, merely licensed. We were not compassionate, we were polite. Not good, but well behaved. We courted death in order to call ourselves brave, and hid like thieves from life. We substituted good grammar for intellect. We switched habits to simulate maturity. We rearranged lies and called it truth. Seeing in the new pattern of an old idea the revelation and the word. They are partly responsible. And this final line, which I think is so beautiful. Certain seeds it will not nurture. Well, the sentence before that is, the soil is bad for certain kinds of flowers. Certain seeds it will not nurture. Certain fruit it will not bear. And when the land kills of its own volition, we acquiesce and say the victim had no right to live. We are wrong, of course, but it doesn't matter. It's too late. At least on the edge of my town, among the garbage and the sunflowers of my town, it's much, much, much too late. I'm speechless. I am so speechless with this book. I did end up giving this 5 out of 5 stars. This is no surprise. I don't know if I will ever be capable of reading this again. I think that it will be another good chunk of time before I pick this up again, but I'm definitely gonna have to pick something that's not gonna, because this tore me apart, y'all, emotionally. This made me cry in a lot of different ways, and I haven't even really cracked the ice on just the complex nature of this book as a whole, because I don't have the time literally to dive into this in the way that I want to dive into it. Also, trying to keep this as spoiler free as possible. It's just kind of hard not to. It's kind of hard to dive into those aspects of it, but Beautiful book, heartbreaking book, 5-star read, and another banned book diary completed. I definitely, I have some ideas for what I want to do next. I think because I've done a young adult book and I've done a adult book, I think I'm going to go for a middle grade book and then maybe do some picture books that have been banned as well. So yes, thank you for tuning in for another banned book diary. If there's any books that you would specifically like to see me cover, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll be back with another video soon.
I'm on my own, broken and alone. I feel the rain crashing down all around.